Welcome to One-on-One with Expert Flyer. I'm your host, Lisa Caslin, and today we're going to talk about a number of interesting travel topics with Chris Herrmann, who is an international travel expert and author of a new book entitled The Youthful Art of Midlife Travel. Thanks for coming, Chris.
Yeah, hi, Lisa. Yeah, good to be with you.
Yeah, great. So your story is really, really interesting, and I think it brings so much value to the boomer demographic in particular. Why don't we start off talking about what inspired you to write this book?
Well, it's I never really intended to write a book. In fact, I never really intended to do the travel that led to it, but it was a set of life-changing circumstances that led to it. And I mean, I was living the family dream and 7 grandchildren, but suddenly, unfortunately, my wife of 40 years suddenly passed away. Mm-hmm. And as time went on, I found myself single where I was 40 years ago. And I always used to observe, young people always going off and what they call these gap years, and they'd go backpacking around the world. And I thought, well, maybe it's not such a silly idea after all. And so I referred to it as my senior gap year. Mm-hmm. And I just saw it as an opportunity where it'd be, open to explore, new opportunities in this next stage of my life. So that's what led me on this adventurous journey around the world.
Well, I mean, you must have had, your friends and family must have had trepidations and, concerns, and you yourself must have been, a little nervous, right? So how did you overcome that?
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember one person saying, "Oh, you'll be back in 3 months," and the place you're going to, I was going to plan to go to Central America, and wow. So it's too dangerous there. And I must admit, I would have been my worst enemy because I come up with what I call these. It seemed like 100 reasons why I shouldn't be going. Going for 12 months. Going on my own, I've never travelled on my own before. It was always with, with my family or wife, and plus I'm too old for this, and all these reasons, and in the end, thankfully, it's that voice inside the head that keeps you awake at night, just wanting to keep you in your comfort zone, and. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, my gut feeling, the pull of my heart, won over. And had I not, I would have missed out on this fantastic experience in life.
Yeah.
And to lead back to your original. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, to lead back to your original question was that because I was blogging about this each week. And initially I just started blogging just to keep my family informed where I was. But then people were, I started writing interesting stories which people found inspiring, and then people said we should write a book on it. So I wrote a book on it, and now I'm finding that, that people are also being inspired by the story and now doing their own form of travel adventure.
Wow. I love that. It's great. So, how does one? You were 62 when you took this on, right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. So, and you had traveled obviously, but you had never backpacked per se, correct?
That's right. I mean, we had some as a family. We'd lived in North America for a few years, many years ago, when the children were little, but it was quite a foreign concept for me to be travelling on my own, and it's like to me it's sort of baby steps, and that's why I say to people, it doesn't matter where you're at, even if it means perhaps going interstate or just whatever it is. Like I had a short trip of a couple of weeks into Southeast Asia. Just took my backpack, and that gave me the confidence to say, well, yeah, I can do this. And then I was in Spain for the first part of the trip, because I just booked a round-the-world ticket, just 3 stopovers and nothing else planned in between. But I had a bit of time in Spain, and then after I left there, went to Central America. That's where I threw away the suitcase and then just went just with a backpack no bigger than carry-on luggage from thereafter. So to me, when I look back, it was sort of progressive steps which gave me the confidence just to grow to the next level.
Wow. All right. So just briefly, how did you prepare? I mean, I just can't get over the vast unknowns that you must have been encountering. I mean, I would imagine that you did some research, knowing where your ticket was going to be taking you. But in terms of where you stayed, I mean, did you stay in hotels? Did you stay in a tent? What did you stay in hostels? How did you do it?
Well, the thing is, I wanted to be an open structure. I didn't want anything sort of planned, and I did that intentionally just to, I guess, just to stretch myself a bit. And in terms of planning, like all I had was just the 3 stopovers in those 3 continents and nothing planned. Like even when my first stopover in Madrid, I flew into Madrid, and in terms of research, I didn't know, and I still don't have really much of a word of Spanish. In fact, I only really knew two words, and that was "sí" and "qué." And so I was aware that the places that I was going to, that there was expat population. Like there's a lot of Americans that live in parts of the expats in Central America, and in Spain there's a lot of British people there. So that I knew that socially there'd be a segue, if you like, into the local community. But like when I got to Madrid, in terms of accommodation, I didn't have anything planned. So it's only when I got to Madrid that I decided that, okay, I'll find a train to Valencia, which I had in mind as a destination. But it was only when I was on the train going to Valencia that said, yes, I know where I'm going. So then I started booking some accommodation while I was on the train. Mm-hmm. And I booked some temporary accommodation for a few days, and then I looked around for a sort of short-term rental. And but generally, when I was backpacking around, it was going back to the original question. It was hostels. That was always my preferred accommodation, and and a lot of us we have this perception of hostels as being somewhat
kind of grimy.
Yeah, but it's almost completely opposite of that. Like many are very professionally run businesses, and the great advantage is it's a great little social hub. I mean, I generally stay in private rooms, but there's a few times I stayed in a dormitory, which was another experience. I'd sort of walk into this dormitory, all these young people in there, and I'd take a bit of a gulp, But then I'd crawl up the top of the bunk, which was the only one left. And then I'd wake up in the morning and think, this is pretty cool. But no, generally it was in private rooms. And a lot of my planning was done just meeting people. When they said, people talk about what the highlight of the trip was, well, that's often guided me as to where and what I did.
Oh, it's wonderful. All right. So getting back to, this safety issue, and you're alone, but you obviously want, and you seem like you're a friendly guy. So what's the best way to meet people? Do you just strike up a conversation with a random person that looks interesting, or, what's the best way to do that? And particularly if you're a woman traveling alone, what's your advice?
All right. Well, it's interesting that a lot of people said, well, were you ever lonely? And to be honest, I was obviously conscious I was alone a lot of the time, but I'd never actually felt lonely in the true sense. And there's 2 reasons for it. Is that number one is the smartphone. Like every country I went to, first thing I'd do is get a local SIM card so I had access to data. And that meant I could communicate with what I call my base social group, which was my family, and my children. So, every so often get almost daily get a message from my son, how you going, Dad, where are you? Or it'd be a video call to, some of the grandchildren. And so there's always that constant communication and support. But then above that is that travelling around, just met so many great people, and that may sort of strike up a friendship for whether it's depending how long I was there, for a few days or a couple of days. And many of those friends, like we kept in contact. And recently, when I was in Europe, caught up and stayed with some friends and met there, and even here in the US and Canada. So, and that's the enriching part, is just meeting all those people. And what I'd also do, like for example, when I was in Panama, I was just transiting through for a day. So there's a number of apps you can use, like meetup.com or internations.org. And I'll just go on there and say, for example, this one day in Panama, in fact, no, it was Colombia when I was there for a day, and they were doing a day hike. So I joined the group and met some really lovely people and had a great day. Ended up at having a meal together and drinks in the evening, and some of those people I once again still keep in contact with. So in terms of your, that was me as a male. For a woman, it's exactly the same sort of opportunities that you can do. And I think travelling single, it does force you to become a little bit more, to step out and sort of meet people.
Yeah, you're more approachable.
Yeah, and travelling with other people, it's a different social dynamics than what it is in, you meet people in the city, because people in the same boat, they're travelling, they're curious and interested to talk to other people, and there's a lot of, obviously a lot of younger people travelling, but a lot of women solo travellers, and came across a number of solo travellers in my age group as well.
That's cool.
Solo women travellers, yeah.
So, but, just to give folks, a little bit more about avoiding, potentially dangerous places, is there anything that they can do to make sure that they're not going down the wrong street in the wrong town?
Yeah, and that's another thing that people say to me, did you ever feel threatened? And interestingly, I never did. Perhaps, there was someone looking after me. But, I got out there and I sort of walking in the streets and just, out there to explore things. But I think a lot of it comes down to common sense and just being a little bit smart. Like, for example, the first thing I'd say is that it's always dangerous until you get there. In other words, we sit there in our armchairs at home and these places seem so dangerous. And the reason they're dangerous because we're not familiar with it. But when you get there, one of the first things I'll do is I'll ask the accommodation staff, is it safe to go, where's it safe to go? Like, for example, once again, the store in Colombia, was in a place in Medellin, and it was in Cali. And I'd been on a bus for quite a few hours, and I felt like just getting out, a bit of a stretch. So I wanted to go for a hike up this popular mountain lookout. And they said, you better to leave it till the morning. It's too hot. And I didn't think it seemed that hot. But the real reason was that it's safer in the morning because they line the actual track with police. And so you go up there in the morning and there's all these police lined up, and it's total feeling of confidence as hundreds of people are sort of trekking and jogging up and down the mountain. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of knowing, like every city, in the US or in Australia, every city has its places where we all know you don't go to. So in some of these other countries, those zones are a lot bigger. So it's really a matter of just asking where you can go and where it's safe to go.
Right? Common sense. Listen to your gut.
Exactly.
Yeah, do it makes sense. So
and just talking to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So why is it that you think it's a mistake to plan a trip in advance. I mean, that's what everybody does, right? So explain
Well,
that.
yeah. Well, my advice really is that, and I mean, it's different if you go to like a 2-week vacation. Well, obviously, you don't, you need to have that structured as much as you can, and particularly the other limiting facts if you're going in peak season when you can't just turn up and expect to have your choice of accommodation. So the ideal thing is if you've got time to travel is don't plan anything. Just plan your flights there and then just take each day as it comes. And particularly if you go more off-season or even the shoulder seasons, you're not. You've got that more greater flexibility with there's not as many crowds and you got the greater choice of accommodation. But the thing is, like when I was traveling like that, like once again, I just planned those 3 stopovers, but nothing else was planned. I really had no idea where I was going to go.
So
but when I got there...
What were the stopovers specifically?
Well, the first one was in Spain, and then 3 or 4 months later, the next one was in Central America, in Panama, and then 3 or 4 months later, the next one was in Singapore for Southeast Asia. So it's really once I got to those places, and like, for example, when I was in Nicaragua, I just planned to go to this place called San Juan del Sur, and I was just going to be there for a couple of days, but I ended up being there for about 2 or 3 weeks because I met some of the local people and got involved in some volunteer-type projects, and
wow.
and a lot of those become very enriching experience. And another one was in when I was in Southeast Asia. I was involved. I left this whole journey without a purpose, and it somewhat frustrated me. But what I didn't realise that a purpose would soon unfold. And once again, it's about being flexible. And long story short, there was mining companies were dumping all this quality bed linen, and that started this a charity project whereby this bed linen, sheets and pillows and whatever was being distributed to charities in Australia and around the world. And when I was in Southeast Asia, one of them charity was this one up in northern Thailand, a bit where those children were rescued out of the cave that time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I made my way up to this charity because I wanted to get the feel of what it's like for these people to receive this this material that we were otherwise these mining companies were throwing away. Mm-hmm. And it was just that enriching experience of just seeing these children hugging these pillows that we'd otherwise be throwing away. But more so than that, I was then invited to spend a week with this hill tribe, with one of the leaders of the hill tribe, with him and his extended family, and just that whole rich cultural experience. And I mean, that just wouldn't happen if it had a rigid sort of time frame that didn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't get that on a tour.
No, exactly.
All right. Well, you have so much to share, and I mean, I know your book is the tip of the iceberg, and I understand that you are going to be launching somewhat of a program, right, to help folks who maybe are in a similar circumstance that you were. Maybe they find themselves single, after a long period of time, and maybe don't have the confidence to get up on their own and do it like you did, but you're going to give them the tools to figure all that out, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because one thing I came back, one question, as I was traveling around, there's a lot of young people who were really inspiring. They're young, confident travelers, and they're immersing themselves in other cultures. And I just came back with the question like, where's all us lot? And I really felt that we were missing out on all the fun. And I know what it's like because I went through those same fears those ones that want to keep us in our comfort zone. So as a result of that, I mean, a lot of people have been inspired by my story and now doing their form of travelling, inspiring others. So that's why I'm putting together an online course along the lines of the 7 steps to become an independent global traveller, which is really to empower people with the confidence to just to get out there and just do it.